President Trump sending out a warning on Monday not to, quote, play games following the decision from the Supreme Court about tariffs. I'm Clinton Griffiths. The president saying those countries will be met with a much higher tariff if they do. Now, President Trump making a series of posts about the High Court's decision, which ruled against many of his tariffs, one of them saying he now wants a global tariff of 15%. That's up from the 10% he announced on Friday. And he said on Monday that he doesn't have to go back to Congress to get approval of those duties. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, what does this mean for the agreement with China and their soybean buys?
Clinton, so far no countries have announced retaliation in response to President Trump raising global tariffs from 10 to 15%. Now, the good news is most USMCA goods are exempted. Plus, the USTR says individual deals with trading partners such as China, the EU, and South Korea remain in place, despite the Supreme Court ruling. But officials tell me we'll know much more in the coming days. President Trump is using the 1974 Trade Act to impose global tariffs of 15% on most countries outside of those that already have trade frameworks. So what does that mean, and will there be retaliation?
I think all the countries are sitting back and waiting as well. And I don't think they're going to want to retaliate, at least not right away, because, in most cases, they still want to have access to the United States. And in only one case that I'm aware of is this 15% an increase versus the tariff they had negotiated. In many cases, it's a decrease.
In response, though, India canceled trade meetings for this week, and the EU also responded.
The EU announced over the weekend that they would be walking back or postponing the ratification that was, I think, supposed to take place this week.
However, USTR Jamieson Greer says China is excluded from the new tariffs, and talks in China March 31st to April 2nd are still on. But Sutter admits there are still some unknowns.
I'm not sure what will happen with China. What we continue to hear, and I read after the announcements on Friday, that President Trump is still planning to go and meet with President Xi very early in April. And I have seen that the relationship between the U.S. and China is just on a steady uptrend, starting with the Busan summit last October.
Sutter says China honored the 12 million metric tons of soybean purchases, and they're already buying part of the additional 8 million metric tons. He says that will continue despite SCOTUS striking down the IEEPA tariffs.
I don't think anybody wants to blow anything up before this very, very high level and important summit meeting between the two presidents. And if anything, I look for goodwill purchases from the Chinese and good things coming out of that summit.
Outside of China, Sutter says there will be some negative impact on future ag trade negotiations.
I do think it will just slow everything down. And that's not good. People don't like uncertainty. They don't like uncertainty, and markets don't like uncertainty. Trade negotiators don't like uncertainty.
And the Supreme Court striking down the IEEPA tariffs may give the U.S. less leverage in future negotiations. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.